Hey guys, welcome back to Project Drive. Today I'm going to do another 2011 model year car. This is the 2011 Kia Picanto 1 litre LX. It is the base spec of the Picanto for this model generation, and it's pretty popular just amongst people who I suppose like small cars. Okay, so just doing a quick tour around the front of the car, we can see here that even though this is the 1 litre LX model, which is the base, you get spotlights as standard, and of course just standard non-LED lighting all around. As we move to the side of the car, we can see now that we've also got steel wheels with integrated hubcaps. As it is a very small compact car, we have got 165 tires all round, and this one is spec'd on Continental rubber. One more thing to mention is you will only get one reverse light, the other is part of the fog light assemblies. Moving now to the boot, as I'll mention in the spec review just now, it is a very small boot. That is something you're going to sacrifice with a very compact hatchback like this. But of course, what you don't gain in the storage compartment, you will gain in the practicality in terms of street parking or things like that. But yeah, it is a very small boot. Although it is a tiny boot, you do get a full spare, which is very nice to see, and even a little lamp for the dark. Coming around to the back, obviously getting in and out of it is fairly simple, but as I said, it is a very small car, so it is even tight for me behind my driving position, although for such a small cabin you would expect a little bit less. The rear window winders are winders, but the fronts are electric, so that is something you're going to sacrifice having a base model car. But the rest is just cloth interior. You do get a smoke tray as standard, but you can remove that in place of a cup holder if you want. It's very simple. There is also rear storage, which is really nice. You don't even get that with most base spec cars in this class range. One last thing to mention is that you do get 3 adjustable seats, and of course it is a true 5-seater car. Okay, now we'll move to the cockpit view of the car. Very basic steering wheel, no controls on this particular model. I think when you upgrade you do get some very basic controls. Got everything you need there, including your fuel gauge, all the warning lights, a tachometer, and obviously your speedo. There are no speakers in the door sills, however there is obviously nice storage for standard size water bottles. Your speakers are up there. There are 2 of them in the front, and in the back seat and down there's one, and then of course the other is going to be mimicked on the other side of that. If we look here toward our very basic infotainment, you can see the clock is reading wrong because I haven't reset it yet, but you've got standards, things like AC. All the controls feel very high quality for a car like this. It's all very simple, all falls to hand quite nicely. This is a 5-speed manual car, as I will talk about in the spec review, and unfortunately it does not have Bluetooth capability, but I'll talk more about that in the drive. One thing to mention is that the glove box, or cubby hole as we call it in South Africa, is actually quite substantially large. This is obviously the owner's manual, comes in a nice pouch, but besides that, the rest of the interior, like the back, is cloth and hard plastic, but as I said, it all makes a lot of sense. The only thing you need to remember is that it's a Korean car, so your controls for the stalks are switched. This is your indicator and these are your wipers. Okay, so you join me now for the spec review. So as I said, this is a 2011 as opposed to 2013. That's when this model generation existed. 1 litre LX. The average mileage on this car is very good. It's 4.9 litres per 100 Ks claimed average, so that's really good. I can attest that as I've been driving this car very briefly, that needle has stayed almost exactly where it was in the beginning, so that's awesome. The top speed is about 155 k's an hour, and you get to a 0 to 100 in about 14 seconds. I reckon you could even push that a bit lower. I think that's a little bit pessimistic. So even though it is only a 1 litre inline 3 naturally aspirated petrol engine, it kicks some ass, I'd say, just because I think this car weighs so little. So it only weighs about 940 kilograms. I think that is the dry weight, so maybe let's say about a ton, give or take. It's, as I said, it runs through a 5-speed manual transmission. The maximum power is 51 kilowatts or 68 horsepower, and that's being made at 6200 RPM, so right at the top of the red line. Maximum torque comes in at 94 Newton meters, and that is going to be felt at around 3,500 RPM. So you have to rev this engine out a little bit, but that's not surprising considering how small it is. The ground clearance is about 152 millimeters, so not fantastic. It does run a little bit lower than a lot of other cars in this class range, but that's probably due to the very small wheel size. But the as I said, so the curb weight's 940, and the boot space, although very limited, can become about 605 liters if you fold the seats flat. They do fold in a 60-40 split back there, so that is useful obviously if you just need a little bit of extra room. And the fuel tank is 35 liters, so not terribly big, but also a very small engine itself. So anyway, that's pretty much the spec review. You'll join me just now for the drive, and then we'll obviously just talk about all the driving dynamics of the car and ultimately what I think about it. Okay, so you now join me for the drive of the Kia Picanto 1 liter LX. So let's start with talking about the drivetrain as I just pulled off from a stop street there. Yeah, the power is adequate. The engine, because it's a 3-cylinder, for all those that don't know, it means it's not balanced. It's not a bad thing. Ultimately, having one less cylinder in a very small car like this is it's really good for it, because it doesn't need all that power. I think Kia were actually very clever by including this car with a 3-cylinder standard, because the fuel economy, as I mentioned, is really good. And as the engine speeds up, it tends to balance itself out fine. You know, it's not too noisy in here. You can hear maybe a few creaks happening in the background there. That's just due to the car's old age, I think, and its plastic construction. But as I said, just coming back to the engine now, it's absolutely adequate for most people. It'll get up, so I'm coming up Newlands Forest Hill right now. Very easy. It's got a nice shift indicator as well, just to tell you exactly where you should be shifting for optimal fuel economy, which is really lekker as well. The gearbox itself, the 5-speed manual, pretty simple to use, much better when it's warmed up. Obviously this car doesn't have a dedicated temperature gauge, but it's no big deal really, because it's not really a performance car. You're not going to be checking that too much anyway. But what you will notice is just when it is warm, it's very easy, it's tactile, it's precise enough, I guess, and yeah, just goes with the flow. So the engine and the transmission pairing are decent. I'd say they work perfectly in this car. One other thing I want to mention quickly about the driving dynamics, something you might see here, as I'm just going to push the brake pedal, and then so it's very sensitive. I don't know if it's specific to this car. I've never driven a Picanto before, but from my experience for this one, the brakes are very grabby. I don't know whether that's due to old pads or not. I'm just going to make an assumption that this is something they've done with this car. They work really well, but they are very grabby, so just be in mind of that. Coming to the steering, you can feel it's very electronic, because I think it is an electronic steering unit, which basically means that the feel is quite limited, but it's quite easy to use, so it feels very assisted. So I'm going to give it a pass, because I like steering feel. I prefer hydraulic units, but the way the world is today, these actually end up saving you petrol, and are ultimately safer in an accident. So in a Kia Picanto, you're really not going to be too bothered. It's fine, it does the job absolutely perfectly. In terms of some of the gadgets that I like in this car that are quite nice, excuse the glare, I apologize for that. The automatic lights on a standard 2011 model economy hatchback, that's quite incredible. I think that they include stuff like that in a car like this, so those are pretty cool. I like the fact that you get electric windows as standard, also very nice. Obviously only in the front, none of them are automatic, which is a bit of a bummer, but hey, you know, you take what you can get. The sound system itself, I'm not too keen on. I think that it gets quite loud. It doesn't get overly loud, so it doesn't distort. So the tuning dynamics are pretty good, but I think what is ultimately limiting it is the head unit itself. sorry, not the head unit, but the speakers. I'm so used to just saying that the speakers are fine, but actually in this car, I've had a look at them. They're very thin paper drivers. They don't look like they've got all that much travel, so don't expect anything amazing. I think if you wanted some proper sound, maybe consider something else. Like even my car, the Ford Figo's got great sound as standard. If you don't really mind, it does the job just fine. It doesn't distort, the sound profile's fine, but just there's really no bass, no low end. Also, it doesn't come standard with Bluetooth, so you will have to buy an adapter for that, and although there is a USB input, it's too old to read modern iPhones. I'm not sure about Android phones. Otherwise, visibility, very good. Road noise, also pretty chilled out. Nothing really to write home about there. I think just coming to a stop now, it's actually a good time to talk about the comforts of the car. So the ride is pretty stable, it's quite decent. The only thing you really notice is going over speed bumps, it can be a little bit crashy. Otherwise, stays pretty flat in the corners, pretty well tuned, no real complaints from me here. One thing I will say, just coming back to the pedal setup, they're quite nicely spaced. However, the clutch can be a little bit sensitive off the line. Your revs can build quite high before you actually feel that grab, and it can just feel a bit jerky. Yeah, anyway, those are things you might have to get used to, and some of the things you might want to know about this car. It's very practical, very usable. It has some really interesting standard features you don't normally receive on a lot of cars, and I have to say all the switchgear feels pretty high quality. Although it's all plastic, everything in here that you touch that is plastic at least feels solid. The actions are good. The material at least is nice and thick. It's not too scratchy and cheap, feeling like you're gonna break it. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all there is to talk about. As I said, the visibility, if I haven't mentioned it already, is really good. You get nice big mirrors. Everything that needs to be adjustable is adjustable, like the steering wheel, like your chair. All those things are just, yeah, exactly how they're supposed to be. So coming to the end of the video now, I think I want to talk about, should you buy a 2011 to 2013 Kia Picanto? Well, I think if you can go for the 2014 model, you get a lot of features that you would come to expect modern cars to have, like Bluetooth and well, I mean, that's the big one, isn't it? You know, just the fact that this doesn't have Bluetooth is just a bit of a pain, but you can work around it. So it's also, in my opinion, not really a deal breaker. You just might find that a lot of the things that are not refined in this car, such as the shake of the engine, the grabby brakes, the short clutch, will probably have been addressed by that point. So yeah, essentially, it's a decent car. I think for the money you can get them, they perform really well in certain areas, and they definitely do punch above their weight. But I would prefer something maybe with a little bit more space. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on the Kia Picanto 1 litre LX. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing here, maybe consider subscribing and hit the like button. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you guys soon. Cheers.